Have you ever wondered why it's so difficult to maintain discipline, even knowing it could change our lives for the better? We know we should wake up early, exercise, study a little every day, but in practice, what happens? It's always "I'll start tomorrow." But why does this happen? Is something wrong with us? Is it just a lack of willpower? The answer is much more complex than it seems, and that's what we'll discover today. We'll finally understand why discipline is so difficult, and most importantly, how we can turn things around. The myth of willpower. We grow up hearing that willpower is the key ingredient to success. Phrases like "if you want it, you can achieve it" are everywhere, from motivational movies to self-help talks. But what happens when willpower isn't enough? It seems like there's something else that gets in the way. This happens because our minds don't work as linearly as we imagine. Willpower, in fact, is a limited resource. That's right. It works like a gas tank. You start the day with plenty of energy, but as you make decisions and face challenges, this tank empties. This explains why it's so hard to resist chocolate or the urge to lounge on the couch by the end of the day. Your brain is simply exhausted. The power of immediate rewards. Another crucial point in understanding why discipline is so difficult is our obsession with immediate rewards. Our brain is programmed to seek pleasure and avoid pain, and this ties back to our survival. Think of our ancestors, who needed to hunt for food. Hunger was an immediate pain, so the reward of finding food had to come quickly to ensure survival. Today, we no longer need to hunt for food, but our brain still works with this logic. It wants pleasure now, not 6 months from now. And what's the problem with that? Most things that require discipline don't offer immediate rewards. Exercising, studying, saving money, all these things provide long-term benefits. Meanwhile, your brain is telling you, "Hey, why are you killing yourself at the gym now when you could have pizza and watch a show that will give you instant pleasure?" This is one of the biggest obstacles we face when trying to develop discipline. We're constantly fighting the urge for instant gratification. This brings us to something psychologists call hyperbolic discounting, which is the tendency to prefer a smaller reward now over a larger one later. In other words, your brain thinks it's better to take a quick pleasure now, like another scroll through Instagram, than to wait for something more significant, like the satisfaction of completing that tough project. The internal saboteur. But it doesn't stop there. There's another important factor that complicates the path to discipline: our internal dialogue. You know that voice that pops into your head and starts making excuses out of nowhere? Something like, "Oh, you've worked hard today, you can leave it for tomorrow," or "one little treat won't make a difference." This voice is your internal saboteur, and it's a master at convincing you that giving up now won't be a problem. This saboteur arises because your brain is always trying to protect you. When faced with something that requires a bit more effort or discomfort, it tries to steer you toward an easier, safer, more pleasant route. The problem is that if we follow this voice every time, we end up stuck in a cycle of procrastination. And then, discipline becomes more and more distant. But how do you silence this voice? This is where self-confidence and self-awareness come in. When we learn to recognize this saboteur and understand where it comes from, it becomes easier to fight against it. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology showed that people with more self-confidence are better able to stick to their goals. In other words, when you believe you can do it, your brain starts finding ways to confirm this belief. That's why self-awareness is so important. It helps you identify the mental traps that pull you away from discipline. The role of the environment. Now, think about it. When was the last time you decided to change your life and stick to a strict routine, but ended up quitting because distractions were everywhere? It's not just your willpower at play here. Your environment also plays a huge role. If you're trying to study, but your phone is next to you, buzzing with notifications, it will be almost impossible to focus. Or, if you want to stick to a diet but have a cupboard full of sweets and snacks, the outcome is almost certain: you'll give in. Our environment influences our discipline much more than we realize. An experiment from Cornell University showed that people who keep unhealthy foods in sight tend to eat much more than those who store them out of reach. The same goes for any other habit you want to cultivate. If you want to read more, for example, put your books in a visible, easily accessible place. If you want to meditate every day, set up your meditation mat the night before. Small changes in your environment can make your life easier or harder. How to start turning things around. Now that we know what's behind the difficulty in maintaining discipline, how can we reverse it? The secret is to slowly trick your brain into working in your favor. And the first tip here is, don't rely solely on willpower. Remember, it runs out? So, you need to create systems and routines that make your life easier. An example of this is the concept of atomic habits, popularized by author James Clear. He explains that behavior change should be gradual and focused on small, consistent actions. The idea is simple. If you try to change everything at once, your brain will shut down and revert to old habits. But if you make small adjustments, like exercising for just 5 minutes a day, it will be easier to gradually increase the time. The key here is to create a routine so simple that it's impossible to fail. This way, your brain won't resist as much. The importance of self-compassion. And finally, we need to talk about one last point that is fundamental. Be kind to yourself. There's no point in trying to have discipline if, every time you fail, you punish yourself excessively. Guilt creates a cycle of negativity that only hinders progress. You need to understand that mistakes are part of the process. The important thing is to get back up and keep going. Research shows that people who practice self-compassion are more likely to maintain healthy habits in the long run. That's because, instead of punishing themselves when they make a mistake, they learn from it and move forward without carrying the burden of guilt. So, instead of blaming yourself when you fail, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? This will help you maintain discipline with much more ease and consistency. In the end, discipline isn't about having unshakable willpower or being perfect. It's about understanding how your brain works and creating strategies to deal with the traps it sets along the way. Yes, it's hard, but it's possible. Now that you know this, tell me, what will be the first step you take to improve your discipline today? Because, in the end, that's the secret. Start small, but start. If you're committed to your personal development and want to keep evolving and leveling up, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Here, I always bring practical and powerful content to help you keep growing. And if this video helped you in any way, make sure to leave a like so that more people can be impacted as well. In the description, you'll find links to books that I've carefully selected, works that can completely transform the way you think and act. It's definitely worth checking out. And don't leave just yet. Take a look at the suggested videos here on the screen. They will help you even more on your personal development journey. See you there.